about this understanding of this ayah. Now, I have an interesting story, and so I'll just go over the story and conclude the lecture for today, inshallah, or the halaqah for today. Some of the Sahabas were captured by the Roman ruler. They were captured by the Romans, and they were taken to the Roman ruler. And so they were paraded in front of the ruler. And so, there were, rulers in the past were very cruel sometimes in punishment. Sometimes they would chop your hands and legs right in front of everybody and let you bleed to death, and then put you on a cross, like Fir'aun used to do this sometimes, right? It's an ayah in the Quran. But this particular ruler, the way he punished was he used a big boiling water, pot of water, very big. And once it's hot and boiling, you would be thrown in there. And that's a very ugly way to die. I mean, that's very painful. And you're really put into boiling water, So he threw one of the Sahabas in there, a Sahabi in there. And he told the other Sahabas, and he said, Tanassar, become a Christian. Right? وَسَأَبْنِ لَكَ كَسْرًا, and I will build you a palace. وَأُزَوِّجُكَ إِبْنَتِي, and I will give you my daughter in marriage. This is what he's telling them. He's trying to sell this dunya to them. Become a Christian. I'll build you a palace. I'll give you my daughter in marriage. And the Sahabas refused, so he threw another one in there. And so one of them started crying. One of the Sahabas started crying. So he said to the Sahaba, he said, are you crying because you are afraid that this is what I will do to you also? He said, La wallah, this is not what I'm crying. This is not the reason why I'm crying. He said, I'm crying because I wish that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would give me a life equal to each and every hair of my body, so I can die for the sake of my religion and the sake of my Prophet this way. You understand what he's saying? You know how many hairs are in the body? So he's saying, I'm willing to die 1,000,000 times over like this for the sake of my deen and for the sake of my Prophet. But I'll never be a Christian. And out of this statement, the ruler let them go free. Because he saw, what did he see among the conditions of the Shahada in this individual? The ulama, they use this story to explain one of the conditions of the Shahada. Which condition do you think he really saw in this individual? He saw al-yaqeen. This person was certain about his faith, that even this kind of punishment would not, make him change. He was willing to die in this way. And that is why the Roman ruler said, he called this individual and he said, you and your people are free to go. And when he was later on, when people tried to find out why, because he said he saw the commitment that was in these individuals. And the commitment they had was al-yaqeen, right? And so when he got back, the ruler at that time, so this will be a good story for you to go and research. You'll tell me who the ruler is, and who the Sahabi is, and who the Sahabi is also. The ruler at that time called him and kissed his hands. And he said every Muslim should kiss the hands of this individual, of this Sahabi, because of his yaqeen. So these are things that they were real among the Sahaba. They were just not PowerPoint slides, just talk in a class. They were real in their lives, these conditions. Remember yesterday when I said in the khutbah, the Sahaba were always looking for something bigger and better that they could get into. It was not enough to fast Ramadan. That's not enough for them. They wanted something more. And some of them started fasting every day. Until the Rasul told them about the fast of Dawood, that the best fasting was the fast of Dawood, of 1 day fasting, 1 day break. So keep this in mind, and inshallah, may Allah increase you and increase all of us in our faith, in our iman, and give us al-qawl al-thabit fil hayat al-dunya wa fil akhirah, in this world and in the next world. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. أسأل الله لي ولكم أن يتقبل منا ومنكم صالح الأعمال إنه سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات. So if there are any questions, I'll try to answer. If not, this will conclude our talk today. Are there any questions at all? Yes, please.
The two conditions, acceptance and submissions, they seem to me like
yes,
they're like
very close to each other.
Can you just clarify the difference between?
Well, one of them is actually first in your heart and in your mind that you have accepted the teaching. Because first, before you implement, you really have to be convinced that I have accepted this teaching. It is true, it is correct. And so there's a sense of that learning and accepting first. And then the other one is the physical enactment of the condition. The reason why I gave the tawaf, because I would do the tawaf and I would see this individual who was next to me. All he was saying is Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. But you know, between these two corners, if you have been to Umrah, I don't know, maybe Faris you have, you're supposed to say a particular thing between these two corners, according to the Sunnah of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Because there are four corners, right? In the Kaaba, there are four corners. It's a cube. But between these two corners, you're supposed to say a particular thing. Obviously, this person didn't know. And he was just praising the Prophet, which is good, you praise the Prophet, but there's a specific thing you say for your tawaf. Right? So I gave that example when I gave that example. But you know, when I learned it, I didn't know either. Until when I went to Hajj. Because some of these things, you don't know them until when you now come to doing the Hajj. Nobody is brought up and told, here's what you say during Hajj, you know, and so on. But before I went to Hajj, you know, and I was taught and I learned, I started, I accepted, and then I implemented what I learned. Yeah, then I implemented. So, but yeah, they're very close. And all these conditions, as you can imagine, they're very close to each other. You cannot separate them really, they are far away from each other.